What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Tastes Like Music. Jason and Joe here, talking about this week's release of the week, voted on by you over on our post tab. We're talking about King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard and their new album, Phantom Islands. And I gotta say, I'm proud of our voters this week. They were going up against some big boomer bait. Uh, Neil Young and Van Morrison both and King Gizzard came out on top, surprisingly. This is their 27th studio album, dwarfed only by the output of Neil Young and Van Morrison. Um, but yeah, this one was developed alongside last year's Flight B741, which I don't remember what you gave it, but I liked it but didn't love it. I was at like a 3.5, I think, on it.
Same, 3.5.
Yeah, and yeah, so this is like I guess in their mind was like the more laid back songs that were developing around the same time. But yeah, I think stylistically not really even that similar. So we'll get into all of that. Yeah, how you feeling about this record?
Well, I don't know. It's tough to tell with a band like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. The Flight B741, that was like their Chuglin album. And when I read about this one and said it was, these songs were developed alongside Flight B741, um, I didn't really know what to expect. I don't know if I would have expected this sound from them. You got all the orchestral stuff. But that's kind of a misnomer because it doesn't feel like a really ornate orchestral album. Like the orchestra and the strings and stuff, and the lots of woodwinds on this album, they're all there, but they never feel. It doesn't feel like. I'm trying to think of a good approximation, like Watertown or like some like really just like fully Burt Bacharach type album where the orchestra is what's going on in the background behind the vocals. It's in some ways, I get things like Chicago, and maybe a little Steely Dan, and maybe like Grateful Dead and Little Feat, and like early 70s, some boogie rock in there, alongside this orchestration and these songs that seem like they're, I don't know, is this like standard? Is this what King Gizzard sounds like? Just standard? Is this their like bass configuration just with this orchestration and stuff on top of it? I don't know. They're such a weird band to try and pin down. I will say I really like the way the album kicks off, Phantom Island. That's kind of what I thought more of this album would sound like. There's a lot of strings, a lot of brass, a lot of piano, kind of free flowing, and then it gets a little more psychedelic at the end, but it's almost got a long, complex, progressive feeling to it. And then they kind of switch gears a little bit with Dead Stick. It's fuzzy guitar, bright horns. That's what I get in Chicago, maybe like early Steely Dan even from it. There's a little bit of the boogie, but it's not quite Chuglin like B741 was. Lonely Cosmos is a little more restrained, a little woodwind forward with the orchestration, lighter touch. And so far, we have three songs that kind of have a completely different feel to each one of them. But I liked all of them. And then, I don't know, the album just kind of loses me a little bit. Like, I like what's going on. I like Eternal Return. It's got that early 70s guitar sound, a little Grateful Dead. Pan Psych has some smoking guitar, some funkiness to it. But a lot of these songs, like Space Sick, Aerodynamic, Sea of Doubt, Silent Spirits, kind of the second half, just feels like there's not a lot of point to any of the songs. Like it has, nice orchestration and nice guitar sounds, and they're kind of shuffling around the edges of a bunch of different genres that I all like. But I don't know, Grow Wings and Fly, the final song, is not the triumphant send off. I don't, that the album needs. Feels a little rote. It feels kind of like the rest of the album where there's just like all sorts of good stuff going on, but like something missing. and I don't quite know what it is. I mean, everything's played really well. The instrumental's fantastic. The strings and horns are good, accentuate, add color. And there's always something going on in the mix. Like it's rarely quiet and rarely, soft and slow and sparse. Definitely not sparse. But I don't love the vocals. I think they're kind of like they don't detract from the album. They don't really add that much to them. And it always feels like good, but it never gets to like great with these albums that kind of delve outside of psych rock. And I kind of like their metal stuff and maybe their proggier stuff. But sometimes it just feels like they're just like adding these elements onto this chassis of King Gizzard that just isn't super interesting to me. Like I like everything I hear, but it all just kind of feels like stuff going on without like the central core of like really skillful, good songwriting, which you do have that in the 70s, and maybe I'm just, comparing them too much to the greats of the 70s, but it just feels like something's missing. I like, what it sounds like, and I really like the first couple tracks, but to me, this is another 3.5 star album from a band that just seems to be stuck in 3.5 star mode.
Well, I don't entirely disagree, but I like it a little bit more than you seem to. I do like the I like that it's hard to pin down exactly what this album's thing is. And I think that's good. That's part of the problem I've had with them. It's like everything usually feels like cosplay or something. And this feels less like that. This feels more authentic to King Gizzard and who they actually are as a band. You do have the orchestration and stuff, which I guess is like this album's thing. But interestingly, they added it after the fact. They didn't even know they were going to do that when they recorded all the basic tracks. So they like recorded the record, and then all of the orchestration was done as overdubs, which I think is probably also a good thing because it enhances the record. I do like the orchestration quite a bit, and I think the arrangements that they came up with for them like are interesting and work pretty well for, especially considering that they kind of had to work around what was already there. So, but it doesn't like you said, it's not like the central thing to the record, which is also nice. Like I like that the songs are more feel more important here because the songs are the base of what's happening and not some like conceptual idea or like microtonal thing or like southern rock is the thing or whatever it is. So I like the like it's hard to pin down. I like that they're kind of exploring this early 70s sound. It's kind of like folky and acoustic in spots. It's a little sort of proggish at times. There's also some of the boogie rock still creeping in from Flight B741. But yeah, generally I like the tunes. Lonely Cosmos is really good, acoustic folky 70s thing. Eternal Return is very dreamy and a great use of the orchestration. But then the second section of that song kind of slips into this funkier thing that's almost like funkadelic inspired, which is pretty cool. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting moments on this. Silent Spirit is probably my favorite track on the record, actually. It's got kind of like an Eastern exotic kind of motif going on. I don't disagree that they're kind of like they've kind of built this chassis and they just plop stuff on it, which is kind of annoying. But um, I think in this instance, this is the best thing they've done in a minute. I mean, it's probably my favorite since Omnium Gatherum, which was only 3 years ago, but like 6 albums ago. So, um, yeah, it's my favorite since then. I'm at like a light 4 stars on it. Everything in between has been like 3.5. The Silver Cord or whatever that one was called was like a 2.5. So, yeah, this is the best they've done recently. I think it's pretty good, but yeah, I can't escape like the feeling that something's missing like you. I think mm, I think probably it's the production, especially in like the vocal production and like I think Stu's producing all of this stuff. He's listed as the producer on this one, anyways. I think they could benefit greatly from um, outside producers, and not because that they're bad producers. They're just like their thing is just becoming too predictable. The sound of their records sonically, they change stylistically from record to record, but sonically they're kind of stuck in this same zone, which makes all of their experimentation feel less interesting because even though they're bouncing from genre to genre at times, you still kind of know what it's going to sound like. All right, well, that's our thoughts on this record. Let us know if you enjoyed it or not in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. We review at least one record every week, and we do a bunch of other content as well. Check the video description to find us on Instagram and Twitter and all of the other social media places. We have a Patreon, we also have merch, and we started a record label. So check all that stuff out in the video description, and we will see you in the next one.